What you doing?
Designing my new 2021 Nissan Kicks online in the Kicks Color Studio. I give each a special name. This one's electric blue, orange, red, white. I call it the gumball machine. You think it's me?
I feel like you're more of a red velvet guy.
Limitless possibilities. With over 100 million available color combinations and Bose Personal Plus system in the boldly new 2021 Nissan Kicks. Bose is a registered trademark of the Bose Corporation. Color combinations include interior and exterior colors. Customization is an available feature subject to availability at participating Nissan dealers. See dealer for details.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
The middle of the week arrives with a bang, ladies and gentlemen. With a bang, a big Tuesday to recap. I knew it too. Remember on yesterday's podcast when I said, boy, guys, I'm pretty sure that this Tuesday card is going to be more interesting with fewer games than the Monday card. Didn't I say that? Damn right I said that yesterday. And it was. Tuesday did not disappoint. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, friends. I am Dan Bespris, and this, of course, is a Hoop Ball presentation as I adjust my squeaky microphone here in the middle of doing the show intro. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Bespris, DanBesbris. And you can follow Hoop Ball at Hoop Ball Fantasy on Twitter, or just go to hoop-ball.com. That's the website. Check out all the wares over at Hoop Ball. Free stuff, subscription stuff, whatever you got, do check that out post haste. I realized that lately I might be promoting too many things on the podcast on a per-game basis. See, that's my per-game numbers. My per-game numbers are too cluttered right now. My totals, they're solid. I'm a solid compiler of stats over the course of the year. But we got to get the per-game stuff in check here. So on today's podcast, outside of the advertisers, because we got to hit them up. That's how we pay the bills around here. The internal things. I've been talking to you guys about recruiting and contests and all that good stuff. So today, Wednesday, we're going to focus exclusively on the recruiting pitch. So I want you guys to really pay close attention to this one. We are recruiting for social media and DFS. Social media and DFS right now over at Hoop Ball. If you've been thinking about hitting me up, do it. Today's the day. I implore you to shoot me a line. Either on Twitter at Dan Bespris, DanBesbris, or email teamhoopball at hoop-ball.com. Teamhoopball at hoop-ball.com. That is team, T-E-A-M, not teen. I don't know if anybody's ever done that misspelling. I don't know what that is, but don't go there. The government will seize your computer. Teamhoopball at hoop-ball.com. I want to hear from you guys. Now, that could be just an inquiry. Hey, I was interested in learning more. It could be a very serious application. Whatever it might be, I'm happy to quickly chat with you guys off air, basically, about it, and see if there might be a fit there. So DFS, social, that's what we're looking for over here at Hoop Ball right now. Shoot me a line. We'll talk about it. Let's talk about Tuesday, because I'm actually really excited to get into this breakdown. I know it's the following morning, and so a lot of the stuff in your leagues has taken place when a player of Moses Brown's caliber emerges. I know that wasn't even the first game on the card yesterday, but the first game on the card was, for all intents and purposes, a pretty boring fantasy game. One of the very few. Boston and Utah at this point are relatively predictable. The only thing that jumped up was that Tristan Thompson entered health and safety protocol, so Daniel Tice got a little bonus run, and he did good stuff with it. 15-11, 6 assists, and a 3-ball. Tice generally finds himself in foul trouble, and today was no different. But with only 2 centers on the board, that meant a ton of Time Lord, who actually just had I don't want to call it quiet, because it was still a good ball game. 7 out of 10 shooting, 14-9 with a couple of blocks. But you figured in 22 minutes, he might just go completely bananas. Remember, though, it's against Utah, and when he's told, look, you got to stay on the floor a little bit longer, he probably, like most of these guys, you see it with Mitchell Robinson annually, Jaren Jackson Jr., kind of the same story. As guys learn how to play without fouling, they also, the defensive stats maybe slide back a little bit. Still, if someone was like, Robert Williams is going to get you 21, 22 minutes a game, you'd be like, oh, hell yeah. So roll that sucker out there and enjoy. Also, you know what? I lied. This game actually did have a couple of things to mention. Joe Ingles has quietly been kind of not bad, even in a reserve role lately. I don't know if something woke him up or what. He's now number 105 on the season overall, and very quietly, guys, has been solid, even with or without Mike Conley in the lineup. A somewhat unsustainable field goal percent recently has been the positive culprit, and he's shooting 52% from the field on the year with 2.5 3-pointers a game. Yeah, I mean, you look at that and you're like, okay, that maybe that doesn't stick. But look, we're already almost 40 games into the season, so maybe it will. Counterpoint, maybe it will. His steals are down this year. I don't know that that's coming back. Utah is not a gambling team in general on the defensive side. He did have one yesterday. But Joe Ingles kind of turned into a little bit of a streamer with benefits. He got that starting role when Conley went down for a week or two, and he's just been good and confident ever since. I don't know why I didn't mention him earlier. He's not on many waiver wires. He wasn't even on them when he was playing poorly, so maybe that's why I didn't bring it up. His ownership is pretty high for someone who, until Conley went down, was not putting up good numbers, but he's been pretty good lately. So just give a quick check on your league, see, make sure that Ingles isn't floating around out there. And now we move on to the game that I thought was the most fun. This was our homework game, and I'm glad we made it the homework game, because we got all sorts of data points from Thunder at Bulls. Let's start with the easier side of the two. That's the Chicago side. The lineup tweak, which, look, I mean, if you're going to make a lineup tweak, you do it against two bad teams. The Raptors with missing their entire starting lineup, and now the Thunder missing some of their starting lineup. 60% of it? Yeah, 60% of their starting lineup. So, sure, if you're going to trot out a brand new starting lineup, you do it against teams that you think you can beat. And look, Billy Donovan is a smart coach. You make an adjustment when you feel like it's going to have positive results, and then your players are more likely to stick with it. Tomas Satoransky, Thad Young into the Bulls starting lineup. And Thad, again, he would have played more if this was a closer ball game. Same with Levine. Same with Markkanen. Patrick Williams was the only complete and total flop in the starting five. Bulls, by the way, on a back-to-back here, so you'll get another look at it tonight. Levine had 40 on 20 shots. I'd call that pretty good. Sato, 13 points, 7 assists, 3 steals. Nice little well-rounded performance. Again, he's going to be a high-floor, low-ceiling kind of guy because he only took 7 shots in his 31 minutes on the floor. That's going to be the thing here. So if he's not making a bunch of them, or if he has a game where the 3-ball or the steals aren't coming, yeah, you're going to get like an 8.5 assist, 1 steal game, and you're going to think, should I dump this guy? And the answer is no, because it levels off. We talked about it extensively on yesterday's podcast, how Satoransky has top kind of 80, 85 upside, so not crazy high, but top 110-ish kind of floor. He's very locked in there in starters minutes, and it's simple. I love what this has done for Thad Young. He's basically a point center in the Bulls starting unit. 17 points, 9 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals on 8 out of 11 shooting. There's a lot to like about Thad Young right now. I mean, this is... I honestly can't believe it that he's still a top 80 value on the season after that slow start. He's basically been a top 60 player for the last 2 months now. At over that stretch, he's around like 13, 14 points, 7, 8 rebounds, 4 and 5 assists, good defensive numbers. Yeah, we know he doesn't shoot 3 balls, but at this point, who cares? He's abandoned the 3, so his field goal percent is great. He's passing out of the high post and the low post, and other guys are just open all the time because he's making good reads. And if guys give him room to operate, he has 900 little trickery shots with the left. And he's scoring on them. I mean, it's been unbelievable. I in 1,000 years, and you guys know, Thad Young has been one of our favorite guys on this podcast for years. And then finally last season, I was like, damn it, the Bulls ruined him. He comes roaring back this year. What a wonderful, wonderful story. I'm telling you, man, I'm going to go out in that Top Shot marketplace, buy myself a Thad Young moment, I think. I got a pack yesterday, guys. I got Serge Ibaka, Troy Brown Jr., and Maxi Kleber. Could there be any more perfect a pack for me than those three guys? By the way, shout out to Dan Yu, who gifted me a PJ Tucker moment. That is absolutely hilarious. You're the man. You're the man. I think I'm just at Dan Bespris over there on Top Shot. I don't know how any of that stuff works. All I know is that I got in line and I got a pack, and it's like the prototypical old man squad moment pack. I don't think it's worth anything. Who cares? It was funny. It was fun. It was $9. That was worth the entertainment value alone, I suppose. Back to the box scores here. I don't know. Can you guys friend me? You can friend me on that if that's a thing. I sound like such an old man. I friended you. As far as the guys moving to the Bulls bench, Kobe White will be better than this on most nights. He played 28 minutes, so I'm not super worried there, and he's a points league guy anyway. Wendell Carter Jr. is your worry point because now his minutes have gone away. He wasn't good even with the minutes, and now the minutes are gone. So to me, he's a drop. And I don't know, maybe he gets it pulled around and they readjust things again, but I'm not going to bank on that. We're late enough in the year, and there are too many interesting options out there to sit on someone who's just not performing. Now, let's talk Thunder, because this was fun. This was real fun and real interesting. Moses Brown, 30 minutes, fouled out. That'll happen. I think won't be the last time. 20 points, 16 rebounds, and 5 blocks. Wow. What'd he go? 9 for 16 shooting, 9 or 10 for 16 shooting. I don't have the number in front of me. 2 for 3 at the free throw line, where he's actually not bad, by the way. He's not a terrible foul shooter. A lot of times you see these high-flying, kind of spindly big men that are just figuring things out. I think he's 7'2", just blocking everything. And usually those guys are terrible at the foul line, but he's actually not that awful there. We talked about what to do with the Thunder. I can't remember if it was yesterday's show or Monday's show, and we spent a ton of time on why Moses Brown was actually the more interesting pickup between Brown and Roby and even Pokusevski. And the reasoning, for those that missed that show, quick recap here, is that with Pokusevski, his value right now at least is tied almost exclusively to the fact that Darius Bazley is injured. There's a little bit of a streamer with benefits element to Poku in that Bazley could come back and maybe they still try to get Pokusevski, 22, 23, 24 minutes, something like that, and kind of carve it out from somewhere else on the team, Kenrich Williams or Darius Miller or Justin Jackson or something like that. So maybe they run big for stretches. But the other side of this is that Poku, just the eye test alone, he's not ready to run with NBA players. I know he had that big ball game, and that was sweet, and he had 8 rebounds in this one, and that was great too, but he's built like me, which I realize this is an audio podcast, so you don't really know what I'm talking about here, but I would tell you guys to just do a Google image search for Alexei Pokusevski and look at what he looks like on a basketball court. He legit looks like a giant high schooler playing with grown men. He's listed at 7 feet, 200 pounds, but if that dude is 200 pounds, then I'm a $185. Alexei Pokusevski is not 200 pounds. He's probably about a $175. He is, there's some strength, but there's no bulk of any kind. So he's just going to get moved around by NBA players right now. Even some of the youngest NBA players are. He reminds me a little bit of what KD looked like when he first came into the league. Just in terms of just body type and build. I'll say this. He's extraordinarily unique, and the future is very cool. So if you're in a dynasty format, he's a guy you almost definitely want to squad on because he's probably the center of the future on that team as he fills out a little bit. He's been playing more power forward here just basically because if you put an actual 200-plus pound guy on Pokusevski, they'll just move him like a toothpick. So what you saw in yesterday's ballgame was actually Poku playing some small forward. Isaiah Roby and Moses Brown were all starting together. When Bazley comes back, I think that probably pushes Pokusevski out of the starting lineup. There are good things there. There are flashes, but he's not NBA ready yet. Isaiah Roby is a bit closer in that he can handle. He's bigger, stronger. He had a good ball game yesterday, by the way. 11 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 1 3-pointer. He gets more steals than blocks from the big man spot. Not really a 3-ball guy. I know he hit one yesterday, but I wouldn't count on that. And his rebounding is fine. Unspectacular and fine. I like Roby because I think you probably see, at some point, Horford just get fully shut down. And this ball game was kind of a precursor to that because there was no Horford. And I believe the note was that it was the first time he's sat out back-to-back games all season long. And the Thunder, I think, are now off for a couple of ball games for their next one. So you'll probably see Horford for that game. At which point, we will have a decision on our hands. Do we trot out Roby, Brown, Pokusevski, any of those guys, as people come back for the Thunder? And this is a hard pill to swallow, but I think the answer is no. I think you bench guys when Bazley and Horford come back and just, at least for one game, see what are the Thunder trying to do down the stretch minutes-wise. Is it going to be a timeshare? Is it going to be one game where Horford plays 30 minutes and then he sits for 2 games? And in those 2 games, you can trot out Moses Brown, Irobi, and whoever else you want to do. We just don't know, and they're not going to tell us either. They're not going to telegraph it. That would be lovely. I'm sure the fantasy community would love a reporter to be like, hey, Mark Daignault, what days are you going to play these guys? Yeah, that's not going to happen. Moses Brown, of course, we have to talk about him because shout out to our buddy Jonas Nader, who I think I even did that on the show a couple days ago, for mentioning him on a Real Big 3 episode about a month ago. As a result, as soon as we saw him playing 26 minutes in a couple of ball games, I snatched him up almost everywhere. I have a ton of Moses Browns on my team, and then this one, as soon as I heard Horford wasn't starting and Brown was, I dumped him in there because you knew it was going to be a high-scoring, fun one with the Bulls. And it paid off in a big, big way. I do think that some of Moses Brown's value is tied to Horford resting or not. It has to be. Some of it has to be. Maybe not all, but some. Because remember, a couple games back, with Bazley out and Horford in, Brown still played about 26 minutes. So it wasn't a complete and total loss. He played 19 his first game on the 11th, then 27 against New York. That was the game where Horford was in. Fouled out against Memphis in 24 minutes. That's a tough matchup with JV. And then here against Markkanen, who's not going to take him to the rack every time, he made it 30 minutes before he fouled out. Their next game is, I scratched that. Tomorrow, they are actually in Atlanta tomorrow, so the Thunder are back on the board on Thursday. And we don't know if Clint Capella is playing, but if he's not, there's going to be John Collins and Danilo Gallinari at the center spot. But it could also be an Al Horford game. So we've got all these things kicking around on the Thunder, and it does make it tough. What I would say is this. There's no blanket thing you can do with these players. You're going to have to watch the injury report leading up to the ball game. If we find out that Horford is in and Roby is starting at power forward, or Pokusevski starting at power forward, and Roby and Brown are both coming off the bench, I think you probably bench both of them just to see what happens. Because Pokusevski might actually be the starter alongside Horford in that matchup. You could also make the argument that Horford and Brown could, or Roby, could play together, because Big Al doesn't have to be right near the bucket. He's better when he is, but he doesn't have to be. It seems like the Thunder want to see what they have with Brown, with Roby, with Pokusevski, and I think they have a better idea of what Poku is or will be, just based on kind of, okay, this is a guy where we need to put him in with the trainers for an offseason and really get him NBA ready. I could actually make the same argument with Moses Brown, who's also a pretty thin guy, but a bit thicker than Alexei. So let's reassess tomorrow. We can do it on social media, at Dan Vespris. When we get the news on who's starting for the Thunder in their game in Atlanta, then we'll make our call. But obviously, if you hadn't picked him up yet, you're picking him up now, and you probably missed the chance. But hopefully, this podcast got you guys out in front of it when we talked about him 2 days ago. Said, look, this is a guy you got to get on early because if he explodes, it's going to be too late. But yeah, I like both Brown and Roby down the stretch. That's the sort of short version of all of this. And I do think that, if you're in a head-to-head league with unlimited games, you could just trot them out there and not worry about it. Roto Games Cap, you do need to be aware of who else is actually playing. Let's move through the rest of the card a little bit more quickly. Atlanta, no Capella, so kind of the same stuff you got in the previous game. Clint comes back. That'll shove everybody down. The only other note on the Atlanta side, and nothing from this ball game, is that DeAndre Hunter might make his return for that game against the Thunder tomorrow, presumably for about 15 minutes or so, but that will likely carve into the Gallo minutes. Probably the Tony Snell minutes will get chewed up a bit. And, I'm sure he's stashed by now, so nothing to worry about there. Houston, we already have word prior to recording this podcast that Christian Wood will make his return for the Rockets tonight. They're hoping to have John Wall back later this week. Oladipo's sitting this one out because of the back-to-back. So you get a whole new look again. Justin Patton, who had already pretty much disappeared, is now, I think you can retire his streaming value. Kevin Porter Jr. is a guy you're just rolling with until the wheels come off. He'll probably do a bit less when John Wall comes back, but he'll still be in there. Jayshawn Tate picking it up. I don't know where all the three balls came from, but you're not going to argue with it. And then Sterling Brown, 8 points, 11 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. Talked about him being someone that we were sort of interested in as well. Daniel House apparently is also close to a return. The problem, of course, here is that it creates this annoying carousel of who is and who is not worth streaming on a nightly basis. KJ Martin, 7 points, 5 boards, couple of blocks. Does his value dissipate when Wood and House and Depot, who, again, sitting this one out, what about when all of those guys are playing? I don't like those question marks. I'm in a lot of games cap formats where I guess it's a little easier because you could just, pick up like a Jayshawn Tate and play him when a bunch of guys are missing. Kind of same story for KJ Martin, Sterling Brown, whatever. But if you're in a head-to-head format where you need to be able to trot these guys out and you have a certain number of games you can use, moves cap, weekly moves limits, that type of stuff. When you're running out Sterling Brown and in the middle of the week maybe Daniel House comes back and just takes his minutes, that'd be a real pisser. I do think that's what happens. I think Sterling Brown's the guy who loses minutes to Daniel House. But we shall see. Quickly here, Kevin Porter, must-start guy. Jayshawn Tate, must own. I don't know that it's must start. Brown, more of a streamer. Be ready to dump if guys do come back. KJ Martin, kind of the same story there. But these guys could all become more important if the Rockets do ultimately just kind of pull the plug on Depot and Wall. And then you've got just wings for days. The upside there is, well, a little bit capped. Tate, he's going to get you steals in general. I don't know what this line was pretty unusual for him. I don't know that we can expect him to duplicate all the 3 balls and all the assists that he racked up in this one, but, cool. Sterling Brown is a guy that I know I said you could probably count on him with the floor. With House coming back, I don't think I would use up a move there. I wouldn't feel comfortable throwing into my lineup in almost any scenario outside of relatively deep leagues. Kind of the same story with KJ Martin. I know his minutes have been good, but I am genuinely concerned that I would dump him into a lineup and he plays 22 minutes and doesn't do anything. Tate, I think you can at least assume, he's getting the starting job. That one's not going away. Tate is the starter on this team, I think, even when everybody is healthy. Because Wall coming back would push Porter up to shooting guard and Depot probably up to small forward. Tate would stick at power forward. Christian Wood would play center. Eric Gordon out for a long while. He'd be probably coming off the bench anyway. House off the bench. Brown off the bench. KJ Martin off the bench. So that's your likely, I believe, Rockets lineup going forward. And that's why Porter is at the top of that list, but Tate is kind of the second one of these non-household name guys on the Houston Rockets. Philly beat the Knicks in a tighter ball game. Sixers finally had to play a close one. Nerlens Noel! I told you guys to hang on there. 6 points, 8 boards, a steal, 4 blocks, 3 out of 3 shooting. A very good night for our buddy Nerlens. Taj Gibson, 19 and change minutes. That's a little bit more like it. Emmanuel Quickley, a quieter performance here on the back end of their back-to-back, but a more efficient one. And just, generally a low-scoring ball game. You can probably move on from Quickley now. The stream there was because they had the back-to-back. And who knows? Do we see Peyton or Rose? Both those guys are somewhat close. And when they come back, Quickley disappears. Burks goes back to being more fringy. I'm not super interested in the short-term stream going on there anymore. Philly is, they are what they are. Dwight Howard came off the bench behind Tony Bradley, picked up more of the center minutes. I'm too worried about the free throw shooting to dive in face first on that stuff. So I'm going to leave that one be. Miami beat Cleveland by 15. Bam came back, played 30 minutes, which left a big chunk for Kelly Olynyk. So maybe the stream is not dead yet. Kelly is on a furious run right now. So keep rolling him out there. Duncan Robinson, a little bit better again. Signs of life for Duncan. You do certainly need the three-pointers to make that plunge, but at least he's slowly moving. He's at 135 now in 9-cat. I think he was at 140 before this ball game. So little by little. Meanwhile, our buddy Kelly Olynyk back inside the top 100. Thank the good Lord. Didn't know how he was going to get there, but I did predict it, so hopefully that holds as well. Cleveland side, Larry Nance back with full force, 37 minutes. I know he didn't get all of the stuff that you wanted in this game, but hard to complain. 14, 9, and 4, steal, a block, and a three-pointer. Hello, Larry. Hope you guys stashed. That should be a pretty easy one the rest of the way, barring a trade. I have no idea how the Pelicans blew this game to the Blazers, but we had Pels +2 as our bet of the day, so that worked out all right. Lonzo, 17 assists. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had his first big game in a while, but yeah, who cares? And the Pelicans are just not super interesting unless they move somebody. Portland, CJ McCollum back, 26 minutes in his return, and they were rusty. Shot 3 for 11. I think he hit two of his first 3 shots and 2 free throws. He had 8 points right out of the gate, and then he had 2 the rest of the ball game, which, the adrenaline wore off, but good to see him log 26 minutes. Gary Trent had one more good one in the chamber, but that's on its way out. And this is a great sign for Portland, to have CJ back, and now it's just a matter of how long it takes to shake off the rust. Lakers beat up on Minnesota. Took them a while to wake up, but then they put the clamps on. Ricky Rubio doubled. He's getting all he can before D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley come back. Kind of the same story for Anthony Edwards, who had 29 points. He's on a little bit of a shooting warm stretch right now. 3 threes and a steal. His usage about to take a nosedive, so get what you can for him while you can. Very interesting keeper dynasty type of guy, but from this year's standpoint, you're looking at Beasley back in a little over a week, and Russell probably not, maybe right about that same timeline, so things are about to get a pretty good shakeup. In Minnesota, Lakers side, Montrez continues to be the guy, elevating his game with no Anthony Davis for the foreseeable future. Talen Horton-Tucker has stepped up in a big way with no Alex Caruso. I don't have the stones to stream THT, so I've basically left the Lakers alone. Outside of LeBron and Montrez, I don't trust Kuzma. I don't trust Schroeder. There's just, a defense first team. They scored 137 points, and really LeBron, Montrez, and then THT were kind of the only guys who had serviceable fantasy games. That's wild. You would think in a 137-point showing you'd get more than 3 guys with sort of above the cut line type fantasy games, but really they didn't. Anyway, earlier games on the card were certainly the more fantasy relevant ones, but damn, that was a fun Tuesday. A lot of the stuff we talked about came to fruition. Those are those days where you can kind of sit back in your chair and just go, we got one. We hooked them. We hooked them this week. Strong week for fantasy NBA today. I told you guys I was going to focus on recruiting on today's show, and that is what I'm doing. So again, if you're interested in social or DFS, please do shoot me a line over here at Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris. Friend me on Top Shot, I think. Can you do that? Someone tell me. Someone let me know. Can you have buddies? I don't know. How do I see other people? You could do it, can't you? I honestly don't know. Someone's going to have to teach my old butt how to do this stuff. Friend me over there. Can't believe you sent me a PJ Tucker moment. That's so damn funny. Also, shout out to our partners here on Fantasy NBA Today, our buddies over at mybookie.ag. Open up an account with promo code HOOPBALL, HOOPBALL, and make that first deposit, and let me know you did. I got a gift for you if you make your first deposit over at mybookie.ag. March Madness is starting, for goodness sake. Let's go crazy with our Wager Pass guys. They got plays up already. Devin's Today in Sports Betting episode today breaks down 2 of the regions. He did the other 2 yesterday. If you guys are going to be wagering on March Madness, you absolutely must listen to Devin on Today in Sports Betting. That is critically important. But I said I was going to just push recruiting on you today and our partners. So again, mybookie.ag is the website. Promo code over there is HoopBall. Shout out as well to manscaped.com. Promo code HoopBall20. Get your male grooming on over there. And expressvpn.com/hoopball. We haven't mentioned them in a little bit. You can get 15 months of VPN service for the price of 12. Oh, do rate and review the podcast, by the way. Don't stop doing that just because our contest is over. Shout out to our winner, Tommy. He got his prize, or it's coming here in the next hour or 2. And I will remind you guys of our next contest again tomorrow and then over the weekend. That's going to be a big thing that I throw onto your heads because I need the Fantasy NBA Today big crew. I need you warriors to go and light up Today in Sports Betting for me. That's a big one. That's going to be a big difference maker for us in growing that podcast and also our sports wagering division here at Hoopball. Great guys working really hard over there right now. Big card tonight, 10-gamer. Again, we're going to keep it fantasy on this one. Brooklyn at Indiana. Mostly watching Karis LeVert, but really also watching TJ McConnell. Got to see if he can find his way with the new arrangement on a team that's severely underperforming now. Got off to a good start this year, and they've just fallen off a cliff. With Brooklyn, nothing. Milwaukee, Philadelphia, not a whole lot to pay attention to over there. Brook Lopez kind of ramping up his game here lately. Sacramento at Washington. Yes, important game. I was tracking Nemanja Bjelica and how many places he was getting picked up, and the answer was not very many. His rostership only went up by about 2% over the last 2 days since Marvin Bagley's injury. So there's still a window for most of you. He's added in like 60-ish% of my competitive leagues. So if that's the number on my competitive leagues, that means he's probably available in many, I should say, of your leagues out there. If he gets the starting nod, I think you have to add him before you even see how the game goes. Meaning, if they announce him taking Marvin Bagley's place in the starting 5, that's basically Sacramento's way of saying, look, we're going to give this guy, 27-ish minutes. And we've seen it before. In 27 minutes, he's a top 90, top 80 fantasy player. Of course, he could be traded in the next 8 days, and that would blow all of that up, and then I truly don't know what the Kings do at that point. Now, the Kings could opt to start Tyrese Halliburton, in which case Bjelica probably doesn't become a thing. But you almost need to be out in front of this one a little bit. Be ready for the Kings to announce their starting lineup and make your move at that juncture. Washington side is a big I don't care. Toronto, sounds like they're getting some guys back, possibly. Freddie VanVleet considered questionable. I believe Pascal Siakam is also questionable. OG Anunoby is still out. So they may be seeing some bodies coming back, and that'll be rather helpful for a team that has desperately needed them. Toronto's just been getting slapped around by everybody. They lost to these same Pistons by some 20-odd points before the All-Star break when everybody was hurt. Or COVID, I should say. Pistons side, no real surprises there. DeLon Wright, I guess the only thing you're wondering is Wayne Ellington going to play? Because if he doesn't, then you'll see a whole lot of Josh Jackson points league usage stuff going on. So that's also a relatively interesting ball game, but not nearly as much as what's going on with Sacramento. Boston, not really interesting right now. Cleveland, same general story, unless suddenly we get a Kevin Love is going to try to play type of report, but I don't expect it. Warriors in Houston, Christian Wood's return. We just talked about that during our recap portion of the proceedings. Generally when a team gets a guy back, I fade them, but I just can't imagine the Rockets being any worse than they've been lately. I'm not touching this game with a 50-foot pole. Warriors favored by 12 on the road. Whoa, that's a big number. Whoa. Fantasy-wise, with Oladipo out and Wall out, and we don't know what's going on with Daniel House, but even if he plays, I can't imagine it would be huge minutes, then you can feel pretty safe tonight trotting out Jayshawn Tate and Sterling Brown and KJ Martin and definitely Kevin Porter Jr. because he's going to get all he can handle with no other real ball handlers available on the team this evening. So this is a shot to use most of those guys. And the beauty part is, even if it's a blowout, there's no one else that can play. Spurs at Chicago. I love Bulls games these days. They're actually fun this year, and I love watching Thad orchestrate for that team. Curious what goes on with Satoransky against a better opponent in San Antonio. Curious what goes on for Kobe White for you points leaguers out there. I think you'd love to see him get a little bit more. Coming off the bench, you'd think the usage would be higher for him, but that hasn't been the case so far. Spurs side, I still want to know what the hell they're doing with their power forward minutes. Is it just going to be Keldon's job? Are they sliding him up a bucket? I don't know. It's a tracker. We're tracking it. I'm not convinced Keldon Johnson is a guy you need to have on your roster the rest of the way, but he's working on it. He had a slightly better ball game last time out, and if his minutes really do stay in the 30s, then that'll buy him some more time. Especially because the Spurs have a ton of games left. So even if he's like a top 115 type, he could compile his way to, top 80-ish, top 70, top 80 numbers the rest of the way, just because he's going to play 3-4 more games than most of the other guys out there. Charlotte, they're pretty much healthy these days. I think the only thing you're monitoring is Devontae Graham's minutes as they tick up. Denver, I have a soft spot for Paul Millsap, but I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on it. That's a guy I'm watching, because if he gets his game back, he could be a very interesting 9-cat roto dude. Miami, curious if they rest anybody on the back-to-back here. Memphis, just please play DeAnthony Melton, you jerks. And then the Clippers and the Mavs in a rematch. Serge Ibaka questionable for this ballgame right now. We'll see if he gets back in there. If he doesn't, you can roll out Ivica Zubac for another 35-minute performance. That was really something. Mavericks, Josh Richardson, he's been above the cut line lately. So I know his last game against the Clips was a slow one, but until he gives me a reason to move him back off of the ad list, add him and roll him out there. He's been pretty good lately. After being very boring for December, January, and most of February, he kind of woke up right before the All-Star break. And I do still wonder, with some of these guys, like Maxi Kleber's also looked better lately, these are guys that were out for weeks on the COVID list. I think it's quite conceivable that these guys are just finally getting their season conditioning in now. I mean, those guys went down early. Remember, short off season, guys were slow to get going, and then those guys missed 2 weeks with COVID, and then they came back, but they weren't the same. It's very possible that my Josh Richardson hatred earlier this year was a bit misplaced. That it wasn't his game that was gone, it was his energy. If that's the case, I apologize. But look, we react to what we're seeing in the games, in the box scores. He didn't look like himself, and now he's starting to look like himself again. So if he's floating around out there, throw him on your roster, have some fun with it, see where it goes. Rate and review the pod. Enjoy the games. I think the NIT starts tonight. What the hell do I know about college basketball, though? Enjoy all of it. Let's have some fun. Tomorrow, we will pivot back away from the recruiting pitch, and I'm going to lay into you guys Thursday's show and Friday's show on the big new promo we've got going on. It's another rate and review promo, but it's not on this show. Still, rate and review this show, even though there's no contest going right now. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. I am Dan Vespers for Fantasy NBA Today. We will talk to you tomorrow morning. So long.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.